You know, usually when we talk about diagnosing a problem, say a structural issue in engineering or a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of absolute precision for you.
Right. Yeah, like broken or not broken.
Exactly. If you suspect a fracture, the X-ray reveals this stark, jagged white line. The doctor points to it and says, well, there it is.
It's a clean, undeniable reality, which honestly is psychologically comforting. We inherently prefer systems that can be visibly mapped out.
We really do. But the moment you transition into the realm of digital infrastructure, specifically building and scaling a commercial footprint online for your business, that metaphorical X-ray machine just shatters.
Oh, absolutely. It is not binary at all.
No, it's aggressively opaque. You might have a heavily researched business model, but the second you evaluate hosting environments, you are hit with this tidal wave of vendor noise.
Yeah, you're suddenly forced to parse through claims about NVMe architecture, TTFB optimization, elastic scaling.
Right. And for a business operator who isn't, operating as a full-time network engineer, this obfuscation feels less like a technical necessity and more like a deliberate barrier to entry.
It absolutely operates as a barrier. The digital economy promises frictionless accessibility, but the foundational layer, the infrastructure itself, is just frequently cloaked in jargon.
Yeah.
And our research indicates this opacity is by design. I mean, it masks hidden fee structures, arbitrary resource throttling, and complex configurations that trap users.
Which brings us to the core mission of today's deep dive. We are executing a comprehensive strategic analysis of a platform that is actively attempting to dismantle that opacity.
Yes, and we have a lot of ground to cover.
We do. Our primary source material today is this massive 10,000-word brand and pricing competitiveness report for the year 2026, alongside some really exhaustive technical catalogs detailing DADYMINDS Cloud.
And we're pulling this documentation apart to understand the actual mechanics of building an efficient digital presence for you.
The goal here isn't just to review a service, right? It's to interrogate the math, the server architecture, and the strategic philosophy that the report claims is engineered specifically to drive fast growth.
And that interrogation requires looking past the marketing copy. Because as the data illustrates, we are not just looking at a company renting out server space.
Right.
We are analyzing a fundamentally different approach to the deployment of digital infrastructure, one that merges sociological frameworks with, enterprise-grade hardware.
So if you want to follow along and actually see what this looks like, you should open a tab right now and visit https://cloud.dadyminds.org. You can look at the plans as we explore this ultimate digital ecosystem.
It really helps to see the dashboard and the catalog while we talk about the numbers.
Definitely. Okay, let's unpack this, because when I look at the origins of DADYMINDS detailed in the report, it does not read like your standard Silicon Valley startup trajectory.
No, not at all. It reads more like a sociological experiment that evolved into a technology firm.
Right. And to understand the hardware, the report argues we first have to understand the genesis of the organization itself.
That is a crucial starting point. If you ignore the genesis, the corporate structure at DADYMINDS makes very little sense.
Yeah, so break that down for us.
Well, the organization was founded in 2018 by Aneth Lee Wales, and he's a Rwandan social scientist and researcher, not a traditional computer scientist.
Which is super rare in this space.
Exactly. The documentation notes that the brand was conceptualized following a period of intense personal crisis for the founder, specifically the loss of his father.
Wow. That is a really profound catalyst.
It is.
But how does a personal tragedy and a background in sociology translate into a cloud computing infrastructure? Those seem like entirely disjointed fields.
They are disjointed in traditional corporate thinking, but not in systems theory. Following that loss, the founder immersed himself in the study of sociological resilience, psychology, and human well-being.
Okay, so it started as a support framework.
Right. The initial iteration of DADYMINDS was purely a mechanism for life transformation, a framework for navigating adversity. Over the next 8 years, it expanded into a sprawling entity.
Right. The report says DADYMINDS Holdings LLC now has 18 distinct trademarks departments.
Yeah, and these encompass areas you would never associate with tech, like mental health initiatives under DMHC and international relations under DIRA.
So the cloud hosting division is essentially just a single cog in a much larger sociological machine.
Precisely. DADYMINDS Cloud operates as their Technologies and Innovations Agency, or DTIA. It's the technical scaffolding designed to fund and support the broader global mission.
That makes a lot of sense.
Their entire architectural philosophy is built around a trademarked concept called creating living legends. The mandate isn't merely to maintain server uptime.
Right, is to transform a user's digital application into a vehicle for professional and social impact so they can build a legacy. I want to look at how that actually alters the product, though. Because frankly, every tech company claims they want to, change the world.
Yeah, which usually just means they want to monopolize a market sector.
Right. If we use an analogy, most legacy web hosts operate like absentee commercial landlords. You pay your lease, they hand you the keys to a raw, empty digital warehouse, and they just vanish.
And if your roof leaks, or in this case, your database crashes under load, getting them on the phone requires navigating a labyrinth of automated support tiers.
It's a nightmare. They are entirely agnostic to whether your business actually succeeds or goes bankrupt.
That is the standard industry model, yeah. High volume, low touch, high churn.
But the report suggests DADYMINDS Cloud operates differently because of this sociological foundation. It functions more like a digital incubator.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because your success directly feeds into their broader mission of global leadership, their infrastructure is incentivized to actually keep you online and growing.
Which is a huge mental shift.
Yeah.
And the incubator analogy holds up when you look at their physical network deployment. They don't just rely on, philosophical goodwill.
No, they back it up with a highly aggressive hardware strategy. The management layer is built on the order box automation platform, which gives them immense control over provisioning.
And the critical piece is their geographic distribution. The report details a network spanning 5 strategic global locations.
Yeah. The United States, the Netherlands, Singapore, France, and India.
For an intermediate network manager, the value of that is obvious. But let's break down the economics of latency for you, the non-technical small business owner. Why does a server in Singapore matter to a company based in Chicago?
It comes down to the speed of light and the physical realities of fiber optic routing. Latency is the actual time required for a data packet to travel from the host server to the end user's device.
Right.
In 2026, your customer base is global. If a user in Tokyo attempts to access a database housed exclusively in New York, those data packets must physically traverse transoceanic cables.
And that distance creates a measurable delay, often hundreds of milliseconds.
Exactly. And in modern web architecture, those milliseconds compound. Because a single page load isn't just one data packet.
No, it's hundreds of requests for images, CSS files, JavaScript.
Right. So a 200 millisecond delay on a single packet translates to a multi-second delay for full page rendering.
Which is an eternity online.
By deploying a distributed network, DADYMINDS allows businesses to route user requests to the closest physical node. This drastically reduces the hops a packet has to make.
Ensuring low latency. And in economic terms, low latency directly correlates to higher conversion rates and lower bounce rates for your site. You are essentially pre-positioning your digital assets globally.
It's the equivalent of having edge fulfillment centers on every continent instead of shipping everything out of a single garage.
That is a great way to put it. And remember, that global reach is available to you right now at https://cloud.dadyminds.org. But let's move from the physical servers to the initial point of entry.
Right, the domain.
Yeah, before you can utilize that distributed network to build a legacy, you have to acquire the digital address. And the pricing competitiveness report spends a significant amount of time tearing apart the domain registration industry.
The domain industry is fascinating because it's essentially a monopoly on digital identity, sold through retail registrars who utilize highly predatory pricing models.
The report explicitly identifies the current landscape as a minefield of promotional traps. Let's dissect the primary trap. The report calls it the GoDaddy problem.
Yeah, though it applies to most massive legacy registrars. We have all seen the marketing, right? Register your .com for 99 cents.
And on a balance sheet? For a startup trying to preserve capital, taking that 99-cent deal seems like a logical, low-risk decision.
It is logical only if you completely ignore the concept of compounding technical debt. That introductory offer is a loss leader.
They take a loss on the front end.
Exactly. They know the friction required to leave their ecosystem later is immense. The report points out that renewal rates on these accounts frequently spike by over 2,000% in year 2.
Ouch. But it's not just the domain renewal that drives the cost up, is it? To get a true picture, the analysis introduces a mathematical model for total cost of ownership, or TCO.
Let's break down the algebra on that TCO formula. The formula is T equals PI plus N minus 1 times PR plus N times CP.
Okay, let's define the variables for everyone.
Right, so T is your total cost over a given period. PI is the introductory price, the 99-cent lure. PR is the renewal price, which kicks in every year after the first.
What?
And crucially, CP is the annual cost of privacy protection. The variable N represents the number of years.
That CP variable, the privacy protection, that is where the real margin is made by these legacy providers, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
For those familiar with DNS administration, we know WHOIS is a public database mandated by ICANN. When you register a domain, your name, physical address, email, and phone number are hard-coded into that public ledger.
Correct. And the moment that data hits the WHOIS database, it is scraped by automated bots. Within hours, the registrant is inundated with spam, phishing attempts, and aggressive marketing solicitations.
So masking that data requires WA's privacy protection. But legacy registrars often treat this essential security feature as a premium add-on, frequently charging $9.99 or more per year.
Sometimes they even bury it inside higher-tier security bundles. So when we run the math on the TCO formula over a 5-year horizon, that 99-cent domain suddenly costs the business hundreds of dollars.
Largely due to the inflated renewal and the compounded privacy tag.
Exactly. The report contrasts this with the DADYMINDS pricing architecture. They eliminate the CP variable entirely by including WHOA's privacy, along with domain theft protection, as standard free features.
With every registration, that's huge.
It is. When you calculate the TCO over a 5-year or 10-year horizon, the cost at DADYMINDS is consistently 30 to 40% lower than the marketing-heavy legacy registrars.
I'm looking at the catalog figures from the report now. A standard .com is listed at $17.54. A .net is $19.49. They offer the newer extensions like .online for $48.09.
And the highly sought-after AI-focused .ai extensions for $131.94.
And all of these include the privacy masking and the theft protection. Let's talk about theft protection for a second, because domain hijacking isn't just a theoretical threat. It is a highly lucrative cybercrime.
It really is. Attackers will use social engineering or exploit vulnerabilities in a registrar's support protocols to unauthorizedly transfer a domain out of the owner's account.
And once they control the DNS records, they can reroute your email, intercept sensitive data, or literally hold the brand hostage.
Exactly. DADYMINDS implements registrar-level locks, specifically utilizing EPP status codes like client transfer prohibited to ensure the domain cannot be moved even if an attacker compromises the initial account layer.
That is a critical security layer.
Yeah.
But I want you to challenge the premise of the TCO argument for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
If I am an operator who knows how the system works, why couldn't I simply buy the 99-cent domain from a legacy provider, utilize it for 11 months, and then initiate a transfer to DADYMINDS right before the 2,000% renewal hits?
It's a very common optimization strategy, but the legacy providers have engineered their platforms to defeat it. The report refers to this as transfer friction.
Ah, okay. What does that look like?
Well, first, you have to contend with ICANN regulations, such as the mandatory 60-day transfer lock applied after any modification to registrant data. This window often trips up users trying to move right before a deadline.
Right, and beyond the regulatory locks, there is the user interface itself.
Precisely. The report describes the process of leaving a legacy host as navigating an upsell gauntlet.
An upsell gauntlet. I love that term.
It's incredibly accurate. The UI is intentionally obfuscated. To initiate a transfer, you must unlock the domain, generate an EPP authorization code, and confirm the transfer via email.
Which sounds simple, but
legacy providers bury these options under multiple submenus. They surround them with alarming warning banners implying your site will crash if you leave and force you to click through multiple screens of discounted retention offers.
wow. They are relying on operational fatigue. For a busy business owner, spending 3 hours vetting a UI to save $30 just isn't viable.
Right. They capitulate and pay the inflated renewal. It's an architecture of exhaustion.
But by starting the registration directly within the DADYMINDS ecosystem, you bypass the gauntlet entirely.
Yes. And you also gain access to tools like their domain name suggestion engine.
Oh yeah, the report highlights that this isn't just a rudimentary random number generator. It utilizes linguistic analysis and semantic proximity.
Right. If your desired name is taken, it analyzes the phonetics and meaning of your query to suggest highly brandable alternatives rather than just appending a number to the end of your string.
Like putting a -1.
Yeah.
It represents a much more sophisticated approach.
Yeah.
Also, every domain comes with a 90-day free trial of Titan email, which we will get to in a minute.
It's a great value add.
So we have established the address, we own the digital real estate. Now we have to construct the application layer. We need to look at the hosting architecture.
This is where it gets fun.
For an audience that understands the basics of web management, but perhaps isn't deeply versed in server virtualization, the array of hosting options, shared, VPS, dedicated cloud-in, can induce choice paralysis.
It absolutely can. Let's start at the baseline and scale up. The foundational tier is Linux shared hosting.
Okay, starting around $95 a month, right?
Yeah, an incredibly lean on $95 per month. This architecture is designed for applications with predictable, low to moderate resource requirements.
What are the physical mechanics of that shared environment?
In a shared architecture, a single high-capacity physical server is partitioned to host multiple disparate websites. All of these sites draw from a unified pool of system resources like CPU cycles, RAM, and disk I/O.
And because the overhead is distributed across hundreds of accounts, the cost is minimal.
Exactly. It is an efficient, cost-effective solution for static portfolios, localized service businesses, or internal staging environments.
I see the plan allocates 20 gigabytes of storage and supports 10 distinct email accounts, which is more than sufficient for a basic web presence.
It is. But the report is very clear that shared hosting is a liability for an application that requires dynamic scaling or expects volatile traffic patterns.
Right, and this is where we need to delve into cloud scalability. If shared hosting is renting a physical room in a massive building, traditional dedicated hosting is renting the entire building.
Yeah,
But cloud hosting operates on a completely different paradigm.
it does. To understand cloud hosting, we have to look at the hypervisor layer. Unlike a traditional server where the operating system sits directly on the bare metal hardware, cloud architecture utilizes a hypervisor to abstract the hardware resources into a virtualized pool.
Let's ground this for you, the listener.
Yeah.
Let's say you're running an e-commerce platform. On a standard, shared, or even a rigidly partitioned VPS plan, you're like a tiny retail shop.
Right.
If your product goes viral on TikTok and you experience a massive spike in concurrent connections, say thousands of customers show up at your door over 5 minutes, what happens?
Your application crashes. The server attempts to process the flood of HTTP requests, exhausts its allocated RAM, maxes out the CPU queue, and begins dropping connections.
The shop bursts and people are locked out. Your users receive 503 service unavailable errors.
You lose the momentum, the sales, and the brand trust. And to fix it, you typically have to contact the host, purchase a larger plan, and wait for them to physically migrate your data or reboot the virtual machine, which means further downtime.
This is the exact pain point DADYMINDS Cloud addresses with what the documentation calls instant scaling.
Yes, because of that hypervisor abstraction layer.
Right, if that viral traffic spike hits, you have a magical storefront. You don't have to migrate servers or schedule a reboot. You can access the dashboard, request additional resources, up to 8 gigabytes of RAM and 8 dedicated CPU cores.
And with one click, the walls push outward. The hypervisor dynamically allocates those resources to your environment in real time, instantly adding more registers and more aisles without even closing the store.
That is the defining advantage of true cloud infrastructure for a growing business. It provides elasticity without interruption.
You expand the pipeline to capture the traffic, and once the viral event subsides, you scale the resources back down to manage operational costs.
It shifts infrastructure from a fixed overhead to a variable utility. And if you want that magical, expandable storefront, you need to head to https://cloud.daddyminds.org and look at the cloud hosting plans.
Absolutely. But resource allocation is only half the battle.
Right.
The actual speed at which data is read from the storage disks is arguably more critical. The report places immense emphasis on the hardware profile here, specifically the transition from traditional SSDs to NVMe architecture.
We need to explore the engineering behind this, because NVMe is rapidly becoming the dividing line between legacy hosts and modern platforms.
To appreciate NVMe, we really have to trace the evolution of storage. Legacy servers relied on HDDs, hard disk drives.
Right, the old spinning disks.
Yeah, they utilized spinning magnetic platters and mechanical read-write heads. They were inherently throttled by physical physics. The disk could only spin so fast, leading to massive I/O bottlenecks.
And the industry solved this by moving to SSDs, solid-state drives, which used NAND flash memory, eliminating moving parts entirely.
True, but even standard SSDs have a severe architectural limitation. They still rely on legacy connection interfaces.
Exactly. Standard SSDs connect to the server's motherboard using SATA interfaces.
And SATA was originally designed for those old spinning hard drives. It is a legacy protocol with a hard cap on data transfer rates and a single command queue that can only handle 32 commands simultaneously.
It's like putting a Formula One engine inside a golf cart. The engine is incredibly fast, but the transmission just can't handle the power.
Enter NVMe, non-volatile memory express.
Yes. NVMe bypasses the SATA bottleneck entirely. It connects directly to the server's motherboard via the PCI bus, the Peripheral Component Interconnect Express.
This is the same high-bandwidth interface used by high-end graphics cards.
So what does that mean for data throughput?
The difference is staggering. Where SATA has one command queue of 32 commands, NVMe supports up to 64,000 queues, each capable of holding 64,000 commands concurrently.
Wow.
It leverages massive parallel processing. The report metrics show that NVMe drives deliver up to 10 times the performance of traditional SATA SSDs in read-write operations.
Okay, when we translate that raw hardware spec into business metrics, it profoundly impacts TTFB, time to first byte.
Yes, TTFB is critical.
It measures the exact millisecond duration from when a user's browser requests a page to when the server delivers the very first byte of data. It encompasses the DNS lookup, the SSL handshake, and the server processing time.
And TTFB is a primary metric utilized by Google's search algorithms. If your server is bottlenecked by SATA drives and struggles to compile database queries, your TTFB spikes.
And Google interprets this as a poor user experience and penalizes your search ranking.
Furthermore, bounce rates increase exponentially if a page takes longer than 3 seconds to render. NVMe architecture ensures that the database queries are executed almost instantaneously.
Maintaining low TTFB, protecting your SEO profile, and retaining customer attention.
The hardware profile listed in the DADYMINDS catalog supports this high-velocity approach. They are deploying dual Intel Xeon processors backed by 64 gigabytes of RAM per node.
But raw power is inefficient if it's not managed intelligently. The documentation details their use of NGINX Plus and Varnish caching.
Let's explain how Varnish operates as a reverse proxy HTTP accelerator for listeners who manage content but don't write server configuration files.
Right. Caching is essentially an exercise in computational efficiency. In a standard dynamic web application, say a WordPress site, every time a user requests a page, the server has to execute a complex sequence.
It runs PHP scripts, queries the MySQL database, retrieves the content, compiles the HTML, and sends it to the browser. Doing this thousands of times a minute consumes massive CPU resources.
It's incredibly redundant. If 1,000 users are requesting the exact same homepage, running that database query 1,000 times is a total waste of processing power.
Precisely. So Varnish sits in front of the web server. When the first user requests the homepage, the server builds it dynamically. Varnish intercepts the completed HTML output and stores a cache, in the server's ultra-fast RAM. So when the next 999 users request that same homepage, Varnish bypasses the web server and the database entirely. It simply delivers the cached HTML directly from memory.
That reduces the processing time from seconds to milliseconds and drastically lowers the server load.
It allows those dual Intel Xeon processors to reserve their computational power for complex, uncacheable requests, like processing a checkout cart, rather than wasting cycles rendering static text.
But here's the critical pivot for you, the business operator. Deploying NGINX, configuring Varnish, and managing hypervisor scaling traditionally requires a seasoned systems administrator.
Right.
How does a lean organization access this infrastructure without tripling their payroll?
They utilize the abstraction provided by the control panels. DADYMINDS Cloud standardizes on industry-leading GUI environments, cPanel for Linux architecture, and Plus for Windows.
These platforms abstract the command line complexity into a highly intuitive visual dashboard. They make managing the tech as easy as using a smartphone.
So instead of writing SSH commands to configure a database, the user is interacting with a graphical interface.
You want to deploy an SSL certificate, or configure DNS zone records, or utilize a one-click installer for a CMS framework? It is all executed via point-and-click operations.
It democratizes enterprise infrastructure. You can review these panel interfaces directly at https://cloud.dadyminds.org.
Now let's transition the analysis. We have the domain, and we have established a highly optimized NVMe-backed scalable cloud application layer. The infrastructure is generating traffic.
But traffic is merely potential energy. Converting that traffic into revenue requires an integrated communication layer.
Exactly. A website brings people in, but communication builds the trust to close the sale. The report heavily emphasizes a shift into what it terms the collaborative intelligence era.
Communication architecture is frequently the weakest link in a growing enterprise. Many businesses invest heavily in their application layer, but neglect their email and collaboration tools.
Resulting in fragmented workflows and degraded professional trust.
Right.
It is astonishing how many organizations still operate using free, generic email addresses. You might be asking, why can't I just use my standard free@gmail.com address for my business?
Well, the conversation isn't just about why an @gmail.com address looks unprofessional, though that's self-evident.
An @yourbrand.com email separates you from spammers and builds professional trust.
The real discussion is about the technical and operational liabilities of disconnected communication. Let's look at the entry point DADYMINDS offers, Titan Business Email.
Titan is positioned strategically for lean teams and solopreneurs who require advanced deliverability and workflow automation without the overhead of a massive enterprise suite.
And the cost structure is highly aggressive, starting between 52 cents and 89 cents per user per month, depending on the package.
But the value isn't just in the pricing, it's in the feature set that directly augments sales pipelines. Let's look at read receipts, but go deeper than the basic functionality.
Standard email provides zero visibility into recipient behavior. Titan embeds tracking pixels that report exactly when a proposal or contract is open.
And in a high-stakes B2B sales environment, timing is everything.
Exactly. If you know a client is actively reviewing your document, you have a precise window to execute a follow-up call while your value proposition is top of mind.
They pair that with schedule send, allowing for asynchronous work environments without projecting a chaotic schedule to the client. You land in their inbox at optimal times.
And there are follow-up reminders, too. Plus, the integration of SmartWrite AI. This isn't just a basic spell checker, it's a contextual drafting tool.
Yeah, the AI integration in Titan analyzes the context of a thread and generates professional responses, which significantly reduces the friction of daily communication.
However, as an organization scales, its requirements evolve from simple communication to complex data integration. This is where DADYMINDS facilitates the transition to Google Workspace.
Starting at $4.54 per month, Google Workspace is obviously a known entity. But the report frames it specifically within the context of collaborative intelligence for 2026.
Right.
What elevates this beyond just cloud-based Word documents and spreadsheets?
The elevation comes from deep enterprise trust signals and the integration of generative AI across the entire data ecosystem.
Regarding trust, Google Workspace provides the cryptographic and regulatory compliance necessary for serious operations.
We are talking about HIPAA compliance for healthcare data transmission, rigorous ISO certifications, and advanced administrative controls over data retention.
But the operational paradigm shift is driven by Gemini AI. The report details how Gemini operates not as a separate application, but as a persistent contextual intelligence layer.
Across the whole suite, let's analyze a standard workflow. You are engaged in a strategic meeting on Google Meet. Gemini is actively transcribing the audio, running natural language processing to identify action items, and summarizing the key decisions.
And without leaving the interface, you can instruct Gemini to pull financial projections from a specific Google Sheet, synthesize those figures with the meeting summary, and draft a formatted proposal in Google Docs.
Which is then automatically queued in Gmail for distribution.
It eliminates the friction of unstructured data. You aren't manually copying and pasting between siloed applications. The AI is synthesizing the data across the ecosystem.
And from a financial perspective, this addresses the TCO efficiency the report mentioned earlier. An operator might view the $4.54 per user fee as an added expense, but strategically, it is a consolidation play.
By deploying Workspace, you can eliminate redundant subscriptions for standalone video conferencing software, third-party cloud storage, and discrete AI writing assistants.
You consolidate the tech stack, lower the overall software overhead, and dramatically increase workflow velocity.
And crucially, DADYMINDS integrates the management of this Workspace deployment directly into their billing and provisioning dashboard.
Maintaining a single pane of glass for the administrator?
So we have built a highly performant application and integrated an AI-driven communication layer. The organization is operating efficiently, which naturally means it is now a target.
In the digital economy, success attracts malicious actors. In 2026, security is not an optional add-on.
The report section on security makes it clear that defense cannot be reactive. Over 5,000 targeted attacks are executed against websites daily, largely via automated botnets scanning for vulnerabilities.
The threat landscape is relentless. The botnets do not discriminate based on the size of the business. They simply scan for exposed ports, outdated plugins, and weak cryptographic handshakes.
DADYMINDS approaches this through a layered defense model, beginning with proactive edge defense via SiteLock.
Let's dissect SiteLock. It operates primarily as a web application firewall, or WAF.
For those unfamiliar with WAF heuristics, How does it differentiate between legitimate traffic and a malicious payload?
Well, a wave sits at the edge of the network, inspecting every incoming HTTP request before it reaches the server. It uses a combination of signature matching and behavioral anomaly detection.
Okay, so if an attacker attempts an eSQL injection, trying to append malicious database commands into a standard contact form.
The WAF identifies the signature of that attack in real time. It intercepts the payload, drops the connection, and logs the IP address, neutralizing the threat before the server even processes the request.
It acts as an active perimeter firewall. Moving inward, we have the encryption layer. Data in transit must be secured, which necessitates SSL or TLS certificates.
DADYMINDS automates the provisioning of Let's Encrypt SSL certificates across their hosting packages for free.
Let's Encrypt utilizes the ACME protocol to automate the cryptographic handshake, ensuring the data passed between the browser and the server is encrypted using robust algorithms.
This is mandatory for protecting customer data and ensuring browsers don't flag your site as not secure.
But the report also details premium Komodo SSL upgrades starting at $23.88 a year. If Let's Encrypt provides the encryption for free, what is the architectural or business justification for upgrading to a commercial Komodo certificate?
It comes down to identity validation and financial warranties. Let's Encrypt provides domain validation, DV. It merely confirms that the server requesting the certificate controls the domain.
Right.
Komodo offers organization validation, OV, and extended validation, EV. These require rigorous manual background checks by the certificate authority to verify the legal existence of the corporation.
In high-trust environments like e-commerce or financial services, that level of verified identity, often accompanied by substantial financial warranties against decryption, is required to meet compliance standards and assure sophisticated consumers.
So we have the WF blocking inbound attacks and SSL encrypting the transit. But any resilient architecture must plan for catastrophic failure.
Whether from a zero-day exploit or internal user error. The backup and recovery mechanisms are where DADYMINDS diverges significantly based on the hosting tier. Let's look at CodeGuard, which is deployed for shared and standard cloud environments.
CodeGuard operates on the principle of differential backups, very similar to how Git version control works for software development.
Okay, so let me ask you, what if I accidentally delete my own homepage while trying to update a photo? This happens all the time.
Exactly. And CodeGuard is essentially a cloud-based time machine. This is a massive step up from traditional backup cron jobs.
Explain the differential mechanism.
Traditional systems often take a complete, heavy snapshot of the entire server every night. This consumes massive bandwidth and storage. CodeGuard takes an initial baseline backup, but thereafter it continuously monitors the file system and the database.
Oh, so when a change occurs, say a user updates a plugin or publishes a new article, CodeGuard only backs up the specific bytes that changed.
Right. It creates a granular, highly efficient timeline of the application state. If you accidentally execute a destructive command and wipe out the CSS directory, you don't have to restore a massive 50-gigabyte server image.
You can log into the CodeGuard interface, locate the precise differential state prior to the error, and execute a surgical restoration in seconds.
Exactly. However, for applications running on heavier infrastructure, such as KVM virtualized VPS or dedicated bare metal servers, differential file backups are insufficient.
You need to secure the entire operating system and the hypervisor configurations. For this, DADYMINDS integrates Acronis Cyber Protect.
Acronis provides bare metal recovery capabilities. But in 2026, the real differentiator highlighted in the report is its integration of AI heuristics to combat ransomware.
Ransomware doesn't just delete files. It utilizes sophisticated cryptography to lock the data and extort the operator. How does Acronis mitigate this at the hypervisor level?
Acronis utilizes a behavioral monitoring engine that continuously analyzes file system entropy. When ransomware executes, it begins rapidly encrypting files.
And this massive, sudden alteration of data structures generates a distinct behavioral signature, a spike in entropy.
Right. The Acronis AI detects this anomaly instantly.
So it doesn't rely on a database of known viruses. It recognizes the behavior of the attack.
Precisely. Once detected, the AI automatically terminates the malicious process. But the truly advanced feature is what happens next.
What does it do?
It utilizes its secure, military-grade AES-256 encrypted backup cache to automatically restore the specific files that were corrupted during the milliseconds it took to halt the attack.
Wow. It essentially self-heals the server without requiring human intervention.
That is true enterprise-grade resilience. The server detects the infection, neutralizes the process, and restores the data autonomously.
And you can review the technical specifications of both CodeGuard and Acronis within the security catalogs at https://cloud.daddyminds.org. Peace of mind is just a few clicks away.
We have now established a formidable technical posture. The application is fast, scalable, AI integrated, and highly secure.
But this is where the deep dive takes a fascinating pivot. Sectioning off the technology from the business strategy is a mistake. How does DADYMINDS help us conquer new territory?
This brings us back to the founders' sociological focus, which physically manifests into their strategic growth programs.
This is where DADYMINDS separates itself from infrastructure as a service providers and operates as a true business incubator. They deploy programs that utilize their technical stack to cultivate professional authority.
The most prominent example in the report is the DADYMINDS Joint Venture Partner Program, or DJVPP.
The DJVPP framework reads more like a venture capital arrangement than a hosting agreement. The documentation describes it as allowing independent operators to function as an affiliated subsidiary of DADYMINDS Holdings, LLC.
Let's analyze the case study provided. EcoAxis Consulting, operated independently by John Indai-Saba.
The DJVPP solves a critical problem for boutique consultancies and emerging enterprises, the credibility gap and the capital expenditure scaling.
Under this framework, John retains complete operational and financial independence over EcoAxis Consulting. However, by operating as an affiliated subsidiary, he immediately inherits the institutional trust and the established legacy of the parent organization.
He gains a corporate umbrella.
Exactly. Furthermore, he gains priority access to the massive technical infrastructure of DADYMINDS Cloud without the prohibitive upfront capital required to build it independently.
The program also integrates direct business development mentorship, aligning his operational strategy with the broader sociological mission of the organization.
It is a symbiotic relationship that accelerates his time to market.
It is a fascinating model of decentralized corporate growth, but they don't stop at B2B consulting. The report also highlights a deep integration with the DADYMINDS publishing group via their Author Express service.
Right, for literary entrepreneurs.
Why does a cloud architecture firm have a dedicated pathway for literary entrepreneurs?
Because in the attention economy of 2026, publishing a comprehensive, well-researched book remains one of the most potent algorithmic and psychological signals of authority.
The founder, Aneth Lee Wales, utilizes this strategy extensively in his own sociological work.
The Author Express service recognizes that the manuscript is just the data payload. The challenge is distribution and platform building.
They term the process manuscript architecting. They aren't just giving you server space. They are literally giving you publishing pathways to elevate a book into a vehicle for professional influence.
The documentation outlines 4 distinct pathways. First, the hybrid partnership, which suggests a collaborative publishing model, sharing both risk and resources.
Second, self-publishing, where the author retains full IP rights but leverages the DADYMINDS infrastructure to build the requisite digital platform, the web presence, the email lists, the e-commerce gateways.
Third, modern distribution, which tackles the complex API integrations required to push digital and print-on-demand assets across global retail networks.
And fourth, traditional foundation, aligning with legacy publishing standards.
It is a holistic approach to authority signaling. You utilize the NVMe cloud architecture to host your platform, the workspace AI to manage your communications, and the publishing pathways to establish your intellectual property in the market.
The report also notes a current 26% seasonal discount on these specific Author Express services, acting as a catalyst for adoption.
It is a unified ecosystem designed to manufacture market leaders.
Which brings us to the operational reality. We call this the weekend window. We've seen the value. But how exactly does a listener make this switch without a massive headache, and why should they do it right now?
The report emphasizes the elimination of migration friction during the onboarding window. Migration friction is the primary reason organizations tolerate suboptimal infrastructure.
The prospect of moving databases, reconfiguring DNS records, and adjusting server environments terrifies operations managers.
DADYMINDS mitigates this through extensive automation and semi-managed support protocols.
Let's look at a new deployment first. If I am launching a new application, the onboarding is completely automated. You get instant account setup.
And the control panels feature one-click application installers for major CMS frameworks. Deploying a complex WordPress or Joomla environment requires zero interaction with the command line.
The platform provisions the database, sets the permissions, and installs the core files autonomously.
But for existing applications, the semi-managed support is the critical factor. For operators migrating to higher-tier environments like VPS or dedicated servers, the DADYMINDS team handles the heavy lifting.
They handle the complex data transfer. But more importantly, they execute comprehensive server hardening.
Let's define server hardening for the audience because it is much more than just installing an antivirus.
Right. Server hardening involves systematically reducing the system's attack surface. The engineering team will configure the network firewalls, disable root SSH access, close all non-essential ports, implement intrusion detection systems.
And optimize the kernel parameters for the specific application workload. They don't just move your files, they secure the new environment before you go into production.
The report specifically highlights their optimized WordPress plans, which include automated core and plugin updates to prevent vulnerability exploitation.
Integrated object caching and full support for WP CLI.
WP CLI allows advanced developers to manage entire WordPress installations, updating databases, managing users, running search and replace queries directly from the command line, bypassing the graphical interface entirely for maximum efficiency.
It accommodates both the visual user and the advanced systems engineer.
Finally, we must analyze the acquisition strategy detailed in the competitiveness report. DADYMINDS is deploying aggressive promotional mechanics to capture market share.
The documentation points to starter combos that bundle domain registration, unmetered Linux hosting, and unlimited email provisioning starting at roughly $2.15 per month.
But the primary lever is a verified discount code currently active in the market. The report tracks the deployment of the code TMNMRRPG.
The analytics indicate that over 1,200 commercial operators have utilized this specific code recently to strip up to 45% off the cost of various cloud services within the ecosystem.
And from a risk mitigation standpoint, the friction is further reduced by trial periods. They offer a 30-day money-back guarantee on the core shared and cloud hosting architectures.
If the NVMe I/O speeds do not reflect the benchmarks, or the network latency doesn't meet expectations, the capital can be recovered.
They also provide a 14-day trial specifically for the Google Workspace integration, allowing teams to test the Gemini AI workflows before migrating their organizational data.
It is a highly calculated acquisition strategy designed to lower the barrier to entry while demonstrating immediate technical superiority.
The technical, financial, and strategic arguments laid out in this report are formidable. Stop struggling with out-of-date, overpriced hosts. Visit https://cloud.dadyminds.org right now. Choose a plan, apply that code, and instantly upgrade your business infrastructure.
Let's synthesize this analysis. We began by examining the sociological genesis of a brand born from adversity, understanding how a mandate for human resilience informs their approach to network reliability.
We unpacked the mathematical traps of the domain registration market, proving how their inclusion of WHOA's privacy and theft protection fundamentally lowers the total cost of ownership.
We demystified the physics of cloud scalability, detailing how hypervisor elasticity and the direct PCIe interface of NVMe drives eliminate latency bottlenecks.
We unlocked enterprise-level email and security, exploring the operational efficiencies gained by deploying Gemini AI within Google Workspace.
And the critical necessity of Wafula heuristics and Acronis AI ransomware protection.
Finally, we observed how these technologies are actively leveraged through the DJVPP and Author Express pathways to manufacture market authority.
It is a comprehensive blueprint for digital operations in 2026. And as we conclude, I think it is vital to leave you with a final reflection to mull over.
Go ahead.
Think about your current digital presence. Are you merely renting temporary space on the internet, constantly paying more for less as your landlord dictates? Or are you investing in a collaborative ecosystem designed from the ground up to secure your data, scale your traffic automatically, and ultimately build your legacy?
That is the defining strategic question for the next era of the web. The analysis is clear, and the engineering data supports the transition. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of modern digital growth. We hope you feel informed, protected, and ready to grow.